Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be looking at the lean startup.
Okay.
We're asking the question, is it a practical path to success, or is it a creativity killer?
Oh, that's interesting.
And we're going to be using Eric Ries' book, The Lean Startup, to help us with that.
Sounds good.
So, the lean startup, with its love of rapid iteration and MVPs, is it actually stifling groundbreaking, revolutionary ideas?
Well, what's fascinating is this whole thing came about because people needed to deal with uncertainty.
Right.
In fact, Eric Ries defines a startup as a human institution designed to create a new product or service under conditions of extreme uncertainty.
So it's all about charting that unknown territory.
Yeah.
But is that data-driven, iterative approach leading us to just a world of tiny little improvements instead of those big leaps forward that really change the game? Are we so focused on minimizing risk and getting all that customer feedback that we've forgotten how to dream big?
That's a good question. I think that, the lean startup model got so much traction because it promised efficiency.
Right.
It's all about minimizing waste and testing assumptions early on with MVPs, those minimum viable products,
Yeah.
and constantly adapting based on what you learn from customers.
And I remember when Ree's book came out, it was really hailed as like the roadmap for innovation.
For sure.
People were excited about this seemingly foolproof way to combat those high startup failure rates. Right?
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that these principles weren't just made up.
Yeah.
It draws on lean manufacturing and agile software development.
Right.
The aim was to make innovation less risky, more customer-centric, and ultimately more successful.
But is that coming at a cost?
What do you mean?
Are we sacrificing those bold, revolutionary ideas that make a big difference for lean efficiency? I mean, are we becoming so obsessed with optimizing for good enough that we're missing out on the chance to create something truly transformative?
Right, so you're so fixated on tweaking and pivoting based on what your customers tell you that you miss the opportunity to develop something so radically different that they wouldn't even know to ask for it.
That's a good point.
Like, what if we were so busy perfecting the flip phone that the iPhone never came about?
Right. That's a scary thought. It's like we're so busy listening to the data that we've forgotten to listen to our intuition.
Yeah.
Those flashes of brilliance
Yeah.
that often defy logic.
I think that's a good point.
But, let's not completely dismiss the power of data-driven decision-making.
No, for sure.
I mean, even established giants like Intuit, the company behind TurboTax and QuickBooks, have found incredible value in incorporating lean startup principles.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they transitioned from releasing new products annually
Okay.
to running hundreds of experiments every single tax season.
Wow.
It drastically sped up their learning process.
That's amazing. Intuit, a Fortune 500 company, embraced the lean startup.
I know, right?
That's wild.
Yeah. It just shows that even companies that are seemingly resistant to change can benefit from the flexibility and customer focus that the lean approach offers.
Yeah.
It challenges that assumption that lean only works for scrappy startups.
Right.
So maybe there's a middle ground,
Yeah.
a way to balance this need for data-driven iteration with the pursuit of those big, audacious ideas
Yeah.
that have the potential to change the world.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
I think you're right. The key is to not view lean startup principles as rigid rules, but as tools in a toolbox.
Yeah.
You wouldn't use a hammer for every task, right?
Definitely not.
So you got to pick and choose when to use which tool,
Exactly.
when is the right time to use them.
So let's look at some real-world examples
Okay, yeah.
where this MVP approach totally nailed it.
Yeah.
Or maybe even missed the mark.
Okay.
Like Zappos, they started as a simple online shoe store.
Okay.
Their MVP wasn't just about testing customer demand for shoes.
Right.
It provided insights into their entire operation, from customer service to logistics.
Oh, wow.
And then there's food on the table.
Mm-hmm.
They used what they call a concierge MVP
Okay.
to validate their meal planning service.
Okay.
They were doing everything manually for their first few customers.
Yeah.
No software, no fancy algorithms.
Wow.
Just good old-fashioned hustle.
That's really cool.
And then, of course, Dropbox. Drew Houston, the founder, created a simple video to explain his product idea.
Mm-hmm.
That video went viral, helping Dropbox acquire early adopters
Wow.
and fuel the company's phenomenal growth.
That's a great example.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So these are all examples of how a well-designed MVP can be incredibly effective in validating those key assumptions
Yeah.
and setting the stage for rapid growth. but it's not a guaranteed path to success.
Right.
And we need to acknowledge that.
Of course.
So are there times when this pivot or persevere mentality leads companies down a rabbit hole of endless iterations, preventing them from committing to a bold vision?
That's what we're going to talk about next time.
Is there a danger in becoming too reactive to customer feedback?
Stay tuned and we'll find out.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment.
Okay, sounds good. Picking up on that last point about pivoting or persevering, I think one of the most hotly debated aspects of the lean startup is this idea of the MVP.
Right, the minimum viable product.
Minimum viable product, yeah.
Yeah.
And, for some, the idea of putting out a product that's intentionally minimal can feel almost wrong.
You'd think when you're launching something new, you'd want it to be as polished as possible, right? Perfect as possible.
Well, the thing is, perfection can be the enemy of progress, especially in the early stages.
Right.
Remember, the primary goal of a startup, especially one that's using the lean startup methodology,
Right.
is to learn as quickly as possible what customers truly want,
Yeah.
not what you think they want.
Okay, so it's more like that MVP is a learning tool, almost disguised as a product.
Exactly.
It's not about shipping a half-baked idea.
Yeah.
It's about testing those core assumptions with the least amount of effort.
Exactly. And sometimes that MVP might not even be a physical product.
Yeah.
Think back to the food on the table example.
Right.
They used a concierge MVP.
Right. Where they were literally hand-delivering meal plans
Yeah, to their first few
to
customers.
their customers just to validate the concept.
Just to see, is this something people would actually pay for?
Yeah.
No software, no fancy algorithms,
Right.
just pure direct interaction.
So it's really more about gathering those insights
Mhm.
than having a perfect product from the start.
Exactly.
But okay, let's say you've built your MVP.
Okay.
You're getting that customer feedback.
Yep.
How do you know when it's time to pivot, to change course?
Right.
Or to persevere and stick with that original vision?
That's where things get a little bit more complex, and honestly, there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Yeah.
However, the lean startup offers a framework for approaching these decisions more systematically.
Okay.
It uses what it calls innovation accounting.
Innovation accounting.
Innovation accounting. It sounds a little dry,
It does sound a little dry, yeah.
but it's actually more interesting than it sounds. It's all about using the right metrics to track your progress.
Okay.
We're not talking about vanity metrics here,
Yeah.
like total number of users or website visits.
Right. So instead of getting caught up in those feel-good numbers,
Right.
you're saying we should be looking at the metrics that actually tell us if we're moving the needle in the right direction. Metrics that reflect real engagement and learning.
Yeah, and sometimes those metrics might reveal that your initial assumptions were way off.
Yeah.
And it's time for a major course correction, a pivot.
Yeah, like in the case of Vodazone,
Exactly.
where they pivoted from a very complex social network
Yeah,
to a much simpler, more focused voter contact tool.
right. And saw significant growth.
And saw significant growth as a result.
Yeah.
Even Facebook,
Mm.
often seen as this like unstoppable force,
Mm-hmm.
had to make significant pivots early on.
They did.
They started as a social network just for Harvard students.
Yeah.
Then they expanded to other colleges and eventually to the
Yeah,
world.
To everyone, yeah.
It's interesting to think that even the most successful companies had to adapt and evolve along the way.
Right.
It seems like pivoting is almost like built into the DNA of the lean startup method.
Absolutely. And it's not about giving up on your vision,
Oh.
but it's about finding the most effective way to achieve it.
Right.
It's being open to change and recognizing that that initial idea might need some adjustments along the way.
But isn't there a risk that all this pivoting leads to a lack of focus?
That's a good point.
Could a company end up chasing the latest shiny object
Yeah.
instead of committing to one clear direction?
That is the danger.
Yeah.
And that's where discipline comes in.
Okay.
A well-executed pivot isn't just a random change.
Right.
It's a very structured course correction based on validated learning.
Okay.
It's about using the data and feedback you've gathered
Right.
to make informed decisions about how to best serve your customers
Yeah.
and ultimately achieve your goals.
So it's like having a compass to guide you through the wilderness,
Exactly.
but you're still allowed to adjust your course along the way based on what you encounter.
Right, you use the compass.
Yeah.
But you still got to look out and see what's around you.
Right.
That compass is your data, your customer feedback, and your understanding of your core value proposition.
Yeah.
The lean startup isn't about haphazardly trying different things and seeing what sticks.
No.
It's about running experiments, gathering data, and using that data to make informed decisions.
It's almost like you're a scientist in a lab,
Yeah.
constantly testing these hypotheses
Yeah.
and refining your formula.
Exactly.
Based on what you're seeing.
Based on the results.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that even a company like Intuit, which you wouldn't typically associate with the lean startup,
Right.
has found ways to embrace this experimental mindset.
Oh, yeah, they have. They've created these internal innovation sandboxes.
Innovation sandboxes? What are those?
They're like these protected spaces where teams can experiment with new ideas without the fear of disrupting the core business.
It's like creating mini startups within a massive corporation.
That's a great way to put it.
It's a really fascinating approach.
It is.
It speaks to their commitment to fostering a culture of innovation.
It does.
It allows employees to challenge the status quo and explore those potentially groundbreaking ideas that might otherwise get lost.
And the bureaucracy.
Yeah, and the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
That's really inspiring.
Yeah.
It sounds like the lean startup isn't just about launching the next big tech company.
Yeah.
It's a way of thinking.
Yeah.
It's a framework that can be applied to all sorts of organizations,
Exactly.
even those that seem very resistant to change.
Absolutely.
But there's one question that keeps coming back to me.
What's that?
Can this data-driven, iterative approach really lead to those revolutionary breakthroughs?
Ooh, that's a big question.
Those aha moments that define true innovation.
Right.
Those moments that often seem to come from pure intuition, from seeing the world differently.
That's the million-dollar question. And to really grapple with that, we need to examine how the lean startup handles those flashes of brilliance, those leaps of faith that often defy data and logic.
Okay.
We're going to explore that more in just a moment.
So we're back and ready to tackle this question head on.
Yeah, let's get into it.
We've talked about, the efficiency and the appeal of the lean startup with its emphasis on, MVPs, those minimum viable products and rapid iteration.
Right.
But does this data-driven approach actually stifle the very creativity that it aims to unlock?
That's a great question, and I think it's one that a lot of people have.
Yeah, when you think about some of the most groundbreaking innovations, the internet, the iPhone, the microwave, I mean, they weren't exactly born from, meticulously analyzing spreadsheets or A/B testing landing pages.
No, those aha moments, they often come from a place of intuition, from seeing the world in a different way,
Right.
daring to imagine the seemingly impossible.
Yeah, so how do we reconcile that seemingly unscientific spark of genius with this framework that's so focused on logic and analysis?
That's where the true artistry of entrepreneurship comes in.
Okay.
I think it's about striking a balance between those two forces.
Okay.
So think of it this way. The lean startup provides a framework, a set of tools for navigating the often chaotic world of innovation.
Okay.
It's like a ship's captain using a compass and maps to chart a course through uncharted waters.
So it's like the lean startup helps you avoid getting lost at sea,
Yeah.
but it doesn't necessarily tell you which islands to explore or what treasures to seek.
Exactly.
It gives you the means to navigate,
Right.
but the destination, the ultimate vision, is still up to you.
That's a great way to put it.
But how can we make sure that that captain doesn't become so fixated on staying the course, so obsessed with the data, that they miss those serendipitous discoveries, those unexpected detours that could lead to something truly extraordinary?
I think it all comes back to validated learning. Even those aha moments, those intuitive leaps, they need to be tested and refined in the real world.
So it's not about disregarding your gut feeling.
No.
It's about using those tools
Right.
to hone and shape that intuition, to turn that raw spark into something tangible and valuable.
Exactly. The lean startup doesn't stifle creativity, it channels it.
Okay.
It helps you separate those truly innovative ideas from the ones that might sound good in theory but don't hold up in practice.
Okay.
And that's where pivoting becomes so crucial.
Yeah.
Sometimes that initial spark might lead you down a path that needs adjusting.
Right. We've talked about some of those examples already.
Oh, yeah.
Voters in pivoting from that complex social network to a more focused voter contact tool. Facebook starting as just for Harvard students and then going broader.
Yeah, and remember that quote from Eric Ries, the only way to win is to learn faster than anyone else.
Yeah.
And that learning doesn't always have to come from just poring over tons of data.
Right.
Sometimes it comes from those moments where you just realize your assumptions were wrong.
Like when IMVU discovered that their users actually preferred a simple teleportation feature
Yeah.
over the complex movement system that they
Yep.
spent months developing.
Sometimes the simple solution is the best one.
Yeah. It shows that the lean startup isn't about building the most technologically sophisticated or feature-rich product.
Right. It's not about the bells and whistles.
It's about building the product that best serves the customer's needs.
Exactly.
Even if that means putting aside your ego or your preconceived notions
Absolutely.
about what you think is best.
Right.
So it sounds like the lean startup isn't inherently a creativity killer.
No, I don't think so.
In fact, when it's applied thoughtfully,
Yeah.
it can be a really powerful tool
It can be. Yeah.
for amplifying those game-changing ideas, for helping us navigate the uncertainty that comes with venturing into the unknown.
It's all about how you use it.
Right.
I think the lean startup principles are most effective when they're embraced as a mindset,
Yeah.
a way of approaching problems and testing assumptions, rather than a rigid set of rules.
So being adaptable,
Yeah.
data-informed, and above all, customer-obsessed.
And you gotta find that balance
Yeah.
between being practical and being bold enough to dream big.
Because ultimately, true innovation isn't just about being lean.
Yeah.
It's about challenging the status quo, pushing boundaries, and creating something that makes a difference in the world.
I love that.
So as you embark on your own ventures, remember that the lean startup can be a valuable guide. But don't let it drown out that inner voice that says, what if?
Yeah.
Keep experimenting, keep learning, and never stop pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
That's the spirit.
And that wraps up our deep dive into the lean startup.
Great conversation.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep innovating.